You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the CEO Leading In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of CEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. So today we are here with Linda Lattimore, and you're the president and founder of a few different companies. Why don't you share with us all of the things that you're into there, Linda? I know a few different things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. Yeah, I think I'm a builder bee. So it doesn't matter whether I'm creating companies or creating structures. It's something that I enjoy the creative process of starting organizations. Right now, I have a couple of different ones, Solutionaries Academy and Cross-Sector Institute, which are the result of a book that I wrote 2 or 3 years ago that ended up having all the stuff in the book, plus a whole bunch of other classes online. So it's an online platform that offers consulting and also classes that people can go take.
Well, the cool thing about that is I think a lot of people are exploring the internet for different things in a way that they didn't before. And so that actually is pretty cool because now I think it couldn't be any more relevant than it is right now today. So let's find a little bit about you, Linda. Tell us an interesting story from your childhood that maybe people don't know about you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories and ones that most, teenagers would cringe at as well, looking back. But, I moved to Peru when I was 5. We were there till I was 12 before we went on to Mexico City until I was 14. And one of the things that I really admire about my mother is that she had a real sense of adventure in her, given the fact that she had grown up in Fort Worth, Texas, as a young woman, had never traveled overseas. Well, that's not quite right because they were in the Philippines when my dad was in the Air Force, but later on in life, let's say when he was working, and they ended up going to Peru. He traveled a lot for work into other countries, and so she was at home. One time she decided she was going to take me up to Machu Picchu, to Cusco and Machu Picchu, with a friend of hers and their daughter who was my age, and when it was time to go from Cusco up to Machu Picchu, you take a bus on all these little zigzaggy roads to get there. They're hairpin turns all the way up the mountain until you get to Machu Picchu. And back then, it was kind of rickety little buses. They didn't look like some of the Greyhounds that you see now. And so she told the driver that she wanted for us to sit in the baggage rack. So we climbed up the ladder on the back of the bus, my little girlfriend and my mother's friend, her, and I'm sure the guy thought we were crazy. And we rode in the baggage rack all the way up the mountain until we got the top to Machu Picchu. And you can imagine what the views were sitting in that baggage rack on the top of that bus.
It's like an e-ticket. It's like being on a really cool roller coaster.
It was amazing. And at 12, you just thought your mom was so cool. And you know what? She was.
My mom would have never let me do something like that.
Well, she was with me. She's the one that started it. But, I look back and I think about her life. She's passed away now, but I think about her life now. And she was quite adventuresome in her own way.
Wow. Well, I'm sure that helped shape you because I have never even heard such a wonderful story like that. That had to be so exciting. My mom would have never actually done something like that herself, but definitely not let me do something like that. That would just have been out of the question. So kudos for your mom of
I'll tell you,
exposing
it's
you
kind
to
of
that.
shaped the way that I raised my own two girls, too.
Yeah.
I thought it was very important for them to travel overseas. I've been an international business strategist and lawyer for decades now. And at one point, I took them to Kathmandu to work at an orphanage, and they washed their clothes on the rocks with the other little kids that had to wash their clothes on the rocks. And they hung off the back of the buses, and now I was the one having a heart attack. And so, it's all about, I think it gives us a breath and a better understanding of the world when we can travel and meet other people.
Well, and the exposure to just experiences that maybe they wouldn't ever have just living in the United States. I mean, that in itself is very valuable. So what would be one word you think that would describe you?
Probably tenacious.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, probably tenacious.
Your mom would probably just be adventurous, like you had mentioned.
And my dad would say I was argumentative. Anyway, I think, I don't give up easily. If there's something I really feel that needs to happen or I need to contribute to, I just keep on and on and on.
Well, and, that probably was a little bit tougher as you were starting out. I mean, a lot of times men look at women, or I don't know, it's not even just men. People look at women and they see that they're tenacious and they strive for what they want to do. And sometimes they think, well, maybe they're just a little too aggressive or a little too assertive. But I think now it's more acceptable. When you were first starting out in career, did you ever have any pushback on that tenacity?
I think that my mission in life has always been about evening the playing field. And a lot of it starts right when you're 5 years old, right? We moved to Peru when I was 5, and from the time I was in kindergarten, I had little kids coming up with their hands out because they were starving. They had no food, they had no electricity, they had no running water. And I think at 5, I probably did not even understand what the word hunger meant. I mean, I was fed well. So very early on, I saw inequity. And, with a father in international business, I ended up going to 5 high schools in 4 years, which creates all kinds of other issues for kids, because kids that are in place aren't always that friendly to new kids coming in. And so I witnessed inequity at that point and went on to college and on to law school. And there was only 6 women in my law school class, and the guys were saying things like, "You're in one of our chairs," So I was witnessing inequity then. And I went on to become a prosecutor, both an assistant district attorney and a federal prosecutor. I ran the white-collar crime section at the U.S. Attorney's Office for a number of years, and I was the only woman in the criminal division, and so I witnessed inequity again. And later on, as general counsel of 3 multinationals, I was the only woman in the C-suite. So over and over and over and over again, I was seeing a lot of onlys. And I'm not sure that I experienced real pushback. I'm sorry. Little quips like, people make, it's like water off a duck's back for me. But it sure made me think an awful lot about making sure that my hand is out behind me to pull the next woman up the ladder. Because if we don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Well, and there are a lot of women that don't want other women to succeed. And unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's probably more prevalent. I would say that it's more outwardly prevalent these days. Because there are a lot of women that are willing to tear another woman down, which is the antithesis of what, this podcast is about. Because I think that every woman deserves, again, us putting our hand out and trying to pull them forward. It's interesting. You say you went to 5 high schools. I actually went to 3. And I think that does kind of lend to a tenacious sort of view of life. Because it's hard to start in a new school, to meet new people. And, but, it also helps with your resilience of how you're going to handle things. And, back to what you had originally said about, going to these other countries and, seeing what real poverty is like. I personally tell everyone that I know, your kids need to be exposed to things that they're not exposed to in everyday life here in the United States, because there definitely is poverty here, but it's not the kind of poverty that you really find in other countries. And so both of my kids have honestly done that. I have a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old. They both have been on mission trips pretty early on. My son went to Kenya, and my daughter actually has gone to South America a couple of times. And, I think it's really important for them to see how good they have it, but also to see that you can also find happiness intentionally. I mean, a lot of folks that are in other countries that experience poverty as we can't even imagine really have an intentional happiness about them. And
I always say that there's a difference between happiness and joy.
You're right. It's joy.
And I've only seen true joy twice. And both of them were in those countries. I can remember when I got to Kathmandu, my suitcase had been lost. And each of the girls in the orphanage had just 2 outfits. That's all they got. And they came in, they were Auntie Linda, and 2 of them each brought me 1 of their 2 outfits so that I would have that until my suitcase showed up a week later. Wow. It was the most joyful group that I had seen. They were happy for what they had. They were happy for the clothes. They were happy for the doll. They were happy for what they had. The other place that I saw it was I took a group of women. I started a women's organization many years ago called Women's Global Network, actually here in San Diego, that started out as a golf game and then ended up in 10 cities and 6 countries doing microfinance projects. And so,
it's funny how that the evolution, right?
I used to call them that my life is just an accident, an accidental book, an accidental organization, an accidental, but it's not actually accidental. Everything is very intentional. We just have to keep our eyes open for the next adventure. Yeah, but I took women over to Africa to meet their partners, the women that they were supporting through microfinance. And that's another place. I remember sitting in Bukoba, Tanzania, with the women that were supporting, and they really had nothing. They had very, very little. Walking into town with a jug on their head to get water, that kind of stuff. But they had prepared a space for the 6 women, those of us that were coming over there. And they had beautiful fabrics all around the trees. And they had little tiny cups of teas. One of the ladies actually sold tea in the schools as her project. And they spoke Swahili and we spoke English. But they would point to their children, or one woman had traveled with their daughter, and we actually communicated with those women. As we started to walk up, they were all singing to us and dancing to us. And that was another time that I thought how joyful these folks were, and they felt very much when sometimes we have so much and think it's not enough.
So when you say that, it just makes me think of gratitude, because it's true. You can have very little and be grateful, and you can have a lot and not be grateful. I mean, it really depends. And and as you mentioned, it's kind of it's very important to be intentional about that. And, I think there's never been more of a time, except for during this pandemic, in my lifetime at least, where I have intentionally, I started in the very beginning because I was like, wow, my job is really stressful and, oh gosh, I need a break. And so I started going on what I would call a mental health drive. And then my son said to me, Mom, that seems kind of like maybe you have an issue, which I know you don't. And I said, you're right. And so I thought about it, and really, so now I've actually turned that into my gratitude drive. Because really being intentional about thinking about all of the things that I am grateful for, because, during a pandemic, obviously, there's a lot of stress and, there's a lot of, I don't want to use the word pivot. So flexibility, changing your direction on a fairly regular basis, but always keeping a gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. I know that there's a lot of discussion about that, but truly being grateful about so many different things, because so many things are wonderful in our lives, even when it seems hard to find that.
Do you keep a gratitude journal?
I don't. But I just had, that's funny that you even say that. I just recently had my birthday. Well, it was actually in May, but one of my friends, we just have had this difficult time getting together, and we just had lunch last week together, and she brought me a journal. And she said, it has such a beautiful cover. I really wanted you to have this. And I went, oh my gosh, I love it. And then I was like, okay, now I really know I'm supposed to be writing in a journal, which I haven't done. So
it's just a great way to end the night or end the day,
sure.
just to write down a couple of things that happened during the day. Although I've begun to think, I've done it a handful of times, and I find in some instances I'll be writing the same thing. I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful. So now I think I like to keep a little pad in the car. And when something, like if someone almost runs into you, you're always like, oh God, thank you, God.
Yep.
That's the time to write down. I'm grateful that I didn't get rent, because by nightfall I'm so tired. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I can't always remember everything that
I don't know. After
passed
working
my way, I should have been
12
grateful
and 13
for.
hours, I'm like, wait, what am I even thinking anymore?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And
you just keep it in your purse or keep it, next to you.
The hustle and bustle of life can get in the way of so many things. And again, our whole health and being our best, part of it has to do with your mental health. And I think, again, more than ever, there's a lot of discussion about that, but mental health is so important and really pouring into yourself. So I'm going to do that, Linda. I'm going to start writing in that beautiful journal that my friend gave me.
And I would just keep it by you. Keep it in your purse. Keep it close by. Not necessarily next to the bed, because sometimes I just go fall in bed.
Well, exactly. There definitely are those moments. So, for you, you've done a lot of different things. And I love your travel experience, because that really does, I think, help shape you and give you different perspectives so that you can, grow in all of that.
I think we all have them. It's really interesting how what I call my book, Solutionaries, You're the Answers. I call it my accidental book sometimes, because I didn't set out to write that book. I actually was working on something more corporate when I started getting phone calls from strangers. I had no idea. They were referred to me from other people. Hello, I'm moving. At the time I was living in Austin. Hello, I'm moving to Austin, and so-and-so referred me to you. I don't want to do what I was doing before. I want to do something that's different, that makes my heart feel good, but I need to make money. And I got like 5 phone calls in 4 days, and I did one of those, close the laptop, okay, what's going on this time? And I scooped up all these people and brought them together into a mastermind. I said, I think I can help you. At that point, I had a nonprofit, and I was also a business lawyer. I said, I think I can help you. I'm not going to charge you. I just want to know if I'm helping you. And so I started running ahead of them, writing worksheets and stuff, and we would meet once a week. And they began to figure out exactly what they wanted to do, who their tribe was, who they should be working with, what was going to make them feel good. And at the end, I had accidentally, quote unquote, written the book, which ended up a bestseller, But the premises of the book actually is that we all have, this is super important for women right now. We all have another DNA, not the DNA that we were born with, but it's a DNA, I kind of call it defining your natural aptitude. It's a DNA based on your life experiences. And so your life experiences are the things that teach you your values, the things that are important to you. If you were lied to, honesty is probably one of your values. If you never had an opportunity for education, that's going to be important to you. So that once you understand what your values are based on those life experiences, now you can articulate them with a backstory and make sure that they show up in your LinkedIn profiles, or that they show up in anything where someone says, why you? You don't want to just be listening to your technical skills that people stick on resumes. Nowadays, they actually want to know who you are, and not just words out of the air, but something that came from a backstory, right? For me, based on my life experiences, evening the playing field for women is very important to me. Honestly, when we got to Africa and I started seeing these mothers with nothing, I felt like I was seeing the mothers of the 5-year-olds when I was 5 in Peru. That was something that had been ingrained in me, and I was 50 at that point, for a long time, and I didn't even know it. Right. So women bring all kinds of amazing things that we need in our workforce these days, not necessarily based on their technical skills, particularly if they're coming back into the workforce, but based on their life experiences.
I couldn't agree more. And a lot of women, I think, go, oh, that didn't go well for me, and I am damaged from that. But honestly, it brings more authority, I think. So when you go through all these experiences, you grow sometimes. And for me, I look at my life experiences and I go, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to make those same mistakes that happened when I was younger. I'm going to encourage women to avoid those sorts of mistakes and use my story as part of the reasoning why. Don't be a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
I've already done that,
Or turn it into a learning moment. Like
Yes.
I had a woman, I was doing some corporate training down at a big oil company in Houston. And we were doing a lot of this work. And it was for a leadership program because I wanted these women, it was 25 women, to be able to really articulate what they brought to the table. Today, interpersonal skills are really big, calling them soft skills, right?
Yeah.
And one woman said, well, based on XYZ experience, she goes, I learned never to trust again. And I said, well, let's now change this into a positive word. How about I learned to be discerning?
Yes.
Because the truth is I want to hire someone that's discerning.
Sure.
But I don't want to hire someone that doesn't trust.
Right.
So if we can take those experiences and not necessarily say I'm never going to do that again, but what did I learn out of that I can take with me as a tool in my toolkit, that I can present out as a leader, as a positive thing, now we've really brought a lot of experience to the table.
Well, it's augmenting who you are based on those experiences. It's not saying, right, you don't want to bring the negative things with you. You want to say, okay, I'm going to use that as something that's actually going to help me in my skill set, like you said, in my career, that will actually bring something to the table that maybe someone else. I mean, think of all the people that are way too trusting and they never question. And, it's very important to listen, but it's also very important to also ask questions. But if you have this, like a dark lens toward someone's credibility when they're trying to share something with you, you're never, ever going to be able to use that as a, have them bring them to the table and, work together in a meaningful manner. So I love that. I think that is, and that's all in your book here.
It's in the book.
You are the answer.
You are the answer. I invented the word solutionaries. I think maybe someone 20 years ago had come up with it, but I was thinking of people who are on a mission. There are missionaries, there's passionaries, there's visionaries. Why not solutionaries? Because I am personally so tired of the chatter and everybody and all the people that think that they're actually contributing by liking something on Facebook rather than actually doing something, that I think each of us is responsible and accountable to do something. It doesn't have to be global poverty. I sort of took that on in my brain. It could be that you really would like to see a street light at the crosswalk for the kids in your neighborhood. Okay, that's a solution that you can participate in, right? It doesn't have to be something massive in the news every day. It has to be just something.
Well, think about this, and I often say this. A community is about us all fitting together. We all have a part, but it's not the same part. And you can't have, 20 puzzle pieces that are going to fit together when they're all exactly the same.
Well, that's exactly what we talk about in here, too, because based on your life experiences, no one has the same life experiences as you. They may have the same technical skills, same education, but no one has the same life experiences that you can add that other component in. So you do have the missing piece to the jigsaw puzzle.
Right. Your implementation's always going to be different than someone else's. Even, again, you could have gone through the same classes, the same exact education, but, and tenacious, back to your tenacity word for yourself, you're going to explore. I think you're going to explore and question. You seem like you really like to learn things and question things and, come up with, again, solutions.
The lawyer in me, too. I mean, hate to say it, but we're born to question,
Well, you know what? And that's, that's one of the things, but not all people that question are. I
am extremely curious because
I think that's
I find people fascinating and I find all the stuff, as long as you can keep a bird's eye view and not get in the weeds. But really, because if you get in the weeds, you're going to get maybe stuck in one viewpoint.
Right. Well, and that's, again, listening. You have to listen to people. one of the things that I've always loved when before I had my current career, I was a new home sales agent. And I remember thinking as people were walking up toward the door, I would look at them and think, okay, I wonder what they're going to be like. And I would have my little preconceived notions, nearly all the time wrong, of whether they were actually a buyer or whether they were coming to kick the tire. I most of the time was wrong. But I was always very interested in learning what they had to say and what they were looking for and finding out what their personalities were. I always found that very interesting because I love people. I love to hear different perspectives, because if you're hanging around and only hearing from people in your little friend group, you're never going to grow. I always want to learn something new and, get a new piece of information of, oh, this will help me with something else, because I'm a connector. I don't know why. I call it kind of the great mystery. That, and you can put me behind a TV and somehow I can figure out how to wire it. It's one of those things that we don't know
That's
about
connection
ourselves.
too.
Well, it is. But see, I didn't know this about myself until I started exploring things. And, one of the things that I always say, and I think you would probably, your whole Solutionaries phrase, which I think maybe that should be your word. It's coming up with, different ideas, but the part of you that's curious, trying to figure out how to connect things together and help people find that in themselves. That's a big deal, because we all need to figure out how to be the best version of ourselves. And so I often tell young people when I meet with them, try something new. You might not think you're going to like it, but when you find something you're passionate about, you are going to be able to put everything into it. And it's not going to seem like work. It's going to seem like something that really is important to you. And it is, even though it's a job, but it actually is something that will fill you. And then you can do so much more.
It's interesting that you're saying that to me, because that is actually third and fourth step. So this process that's in the book, that's in the masterminds that I currently run and the online classes, is 6 steps. So the first is figuring out what your values are based on those life experience. And the second is how you're showing up. What's your personal brand? Can I actually see those values? The third was, when this group of people came to me, of course, they had no vision. They came because they were lost, right? So we couldn't do vision boards because they had no vision.
Right.
So I thought, well, okay, what's a precursor to a vision board when somebody is really looking to figure out what I really hate the word passion, because what if you thought there was only one and you didn't know what it was? You'd feel like your life was a waste. No, we have a lot of passions, right?
Sure, yeah.
So what I did was I asked everybody to go out and look at magazines and look in the news and just find 3 things that interested them or bothered them. That's it. Some kind of social issue, right? But it could be interesting, like maybe they're interested in Tesla. It didn't have to be global poverty, right? So some of them, it was all women that were in this particular first mastermind, came in tears. And I was kind of like, what's going on? This was supposed to be fun. Well, we've had blinders on the last few years because it hurts to look at the world, which, boy, this last decade has been tough, just not the last couple of years, right? But you made us rip off the blinders and look at the news and everything. And so we've each come in with a couple of words, and different things bothered them, from cyberbullying. Maybe they had a personal experience themselves, or there was a number of different things. So I said, now what I want you to do is go look for the people that are trying to find the solution to the thing that really bothers you. And if you can bring it down to a community level, that's even great, because you might be able to meet them in person, but start just researching. And once you find that tribe of kindred spirits, now we'll line up the values, and probably now you have the perfect job, because they're doing something that touches your heart. It's a place where you can make money. It's a place where you can bring your other DNA to the table. And it was all about narrowing down just to figure out some stuff that even interested them.
Right. Yeah. Because you're not going to do that job very well if you're not interested in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're not going to find, to really have fulfilling work, you have to be heart connected to it. Otherwise, I did a talk at a job club one day. A bunch of people were out looking for jobs. And I asked them if they went on Glassdoor to look at the values of the company, not just look, and were they really studying the organization based on, what it represented in the world, or were they just looking at a salary?
Right.
One of the guys in the group stood up and he says, "Oh, I just go for the money. That's it." And I said, "How's that working out for you?" He goes, "Well, I had 3 jobs in the last 18 months. And some of the
There's your answer.
I know, right? Some of the other women in the group were going, "No, I go research. I talk to other people to find out other employees, how they're treated, because honestly, we haven't, as a gender, necessarily been treated that well."
Right.
And now, as women, we are starting to go, "I think I better need to go check in first and see if that's the kind of place that I want to work, and do I feel connected to it?"
Right. It's the right culture, because
the
when
right culture.
the culture is comfortable, that's when we thrive.
Yeah.
If we go into a very hostile sort of situation, we're never going to be able to reach and achieve all the things that we want to, because we feel stifled, because we're unsettled. We can't grow in the way that we need to. And I don't even think you feel comfortable enough to ask the right questions to actually do that job well, because you're too unsettled the whole time. And
I really want to caution everybody this time too, because it seems like there's a split in the way that people are. There's splits everywhere, but so this isn't a bad split. It's just a difference in the way people are thinking. And one is, "Oh my God, I've lost my job. I've got to get some income in. I don't even care what the job is." There's that group, and I understand the pain on that. Then there's the other ones that are going, "Wow, I finally figured out during the pandemic that I hated my job.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go do something that really, I may start my own business or whatever else, but I don't want to do that anymore." So as a result, there's some huge statistic, like 80 to 90% of our workforce is looking for new work.
Right. Well, it's the evolution.
Whether they've lost the job or whether they want into something else.
Right. Well, I think it is an innovation, evolution sort of time. I think no greater than any time in my life, or any period in my lifetime, there are a lot of people that are just starting to question. There's been a lot of self-reflection, a lot of actually looking in the mirror and saying, "Am I happy?" Back to what, the original part of the conversation. So looking at young women that are looking for leadership, that want to be a leader in some way, what would be some advice you would give them?
Oh, well, I have a paperweight that sits on my desk, and I've had it there for years and years and years. It's a crystal paperweight, and it has a bunch of little feet on it, and it says, "Each step of the journey is the journey." I think that we have to remember, you may think there's an ultimate destination, but there's not. And you're going to have, and I have had so many, you're going to have lots of zigzags. And you're going to change your mind. And something else is going to come up that you've learned about, and that's okay. It's not a straight line. And so, I think probably there was a point in my life, in my early 20s, getting out of law school, I thought that okay, get out, take the bar, you're a lawyer. That was the destination. I had no idea that my life took me on the trajectory that it's been on for the last few decades, right? Which has been fascinating. And so that's one. And then the other thing is I never say no. I say not never say no, but unless it's something bad for me, right? But
Right.
By and large, I say yes to every opportunity that shows itself, even if it makes no sense to me, as in Solutionaries or starting Women's Global Network or many of the other things that have happened, because they've brought me, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. And the people I've met on those journeys, has been fascinating.
What's interesting about that comment is that I think there is more, I don't want to say pivoting, but directional changes that are happening in our lives in the last probably 20, 30 years. Many people are not staying in the same career. They're actually trying new things because of opportunities that come up. Just like you were saying. I certainly, my background, I was in real estate, and then my ex and I started a business. I never saw my turn. It was such a deep turn, and I went, "What? I can't do this." And but I think we're happier as we're making small changes, and sometimes drastic changes, just changes in everything. As far as, our careers go, but a lot of things come into play when you start having these different opportunities, meeting people. I love to connect people. I go, oh, wait, you want to know about this? I know someone that does that. And watching people get connected, and then in response to that, sometimes I get connected due to these opportunities that come for other people. And so it's interesting how that all works. And I think women need to pay more attention to that. If there's an opportunity, like you said, try it. Never say no. Or, say only no if it's really not good for you and it's going to blow up your life.
I'm not out taking drugs.
Yeah, no, of course.
That kind of stuff. But
yeah.
Generally, the other thing too that someone told me a long, long, long time ago, and I really paid attention to it, is that every single person that you meet, whether it's the mailman or a friend of a friend or the lady behind the counter at Walgreens, if you take a second, every single human being that you meet, you will get something from.
Absolutely. Contribution to your life. I couldn't agree more.
Just something.
Yep.
If you there's a woman that I actually have mentioned probably 30 times in the last few weeks, because it was a lady at Rite Aid. I was in walking my dog, and I went in, and she ran over to the dog treat counter, opened up a package to bring him treats just because. I've told so many people about how kind she is. I don't know her name. I don't know anything. But that expression of kindness has really stuck with me. And I think that's another thing that I would tell probably anyone, but young women. I have 2 daughters, 37 and 33. Is that we don't even understand the impact of our actions most of the time.
I agree. Random acts of kindness are really important. And I think now more than ever, in a time of extreme hopelessness for some, that actually brings some hope to others. And I couldn't agree more. So, Linda, thank you so much for coming today and sharing this amazing story and really some great information for hope and encouraging women. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with CEO host Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.